Alright, here's 10.1. A lot of vocabulary that we're going to have to learn here real quick, because we're going to be using these terms throughout this whole chapter, so you're going to need to be familiar with these terms pretty quickly. The first thing is a circle is a locus, and the word locus just simply means a set of, like a set or a group of. So a locus, or a group of points in a plane, that should have said plane, my bad, equidistant from a given point, called the center. Okay, so here's your group of points, and they all are the same distance from this center. And if I was to call this center C, that point C, I would name this for its center. I would call it circle C, just like that. A chord is a segment with endpoints that are on the circle. So you can see here's a chord right here, and has an endpoint there and an endpoint there on the circle. The radius is any segment with endpoints that are on the center and a point on the circle. So actually we don't even have a radius drawn here, but if I wanted to, I would just go straight like that, and that would be a radius right there. Notice it comes from the center and to the endpoint, and any line here from the center to the edge of the circle is a radius. And a diameter is a chord, so it's a segment that goes from one point of the circle to the other, but it always passes through the center. Okay, basic vocab, make sure you're familiar with that. Some of that is not brand new. Probably the new things that you haven't seen before is the word chord and that word locus, but that's not an important word yet, quite yet. We will see it a little bit later on, but remember, that just means a set, and radius, or a chord, is a segment that goes from one point to another point on the circle. Okay, so for this first one, it just wants us to practice a little bit of that vocabulary. So we are going to name the circle, identify a radius, a chord, and the diameter. Okay, so the circle's name, well, since it's got a K in the center, we would just write a little circle with a dot in it and then write K. There's lots of radiuses that we could use here. So we could say the radius is, I got NK, I got KO, I got RK, I got KQ, and I have KP. All of those could be radiuses. A chord. The only chord, well, I see two chords here, but the only one that's just a chord and not a diameter is this one, NO. So, chord, NO. And the diameter, the only diameter that I see is RP. It goes right through the center and through both sides of the circle there. So the diameter is RP. And up here I wrote with capital R. I probably shouldn't have done that. Normally we do radius with a lowercase r. So, just a little clarification. Alright, there's all the parts of a circle. Now let's use it in understanding how to make some calculations here. See, it says circle A has diameters DF and PG. Okay, yep, so these are both diameters. And they want us to find certain distances. Now, something to remember is that the diameter always equals 2 times the radius. So they're saying in this first one, they say, hey, if DF is 10, DF being the diameter, what is DA? Well, it would have to be half of 10, so the answer would be 5. And if PA is 7, there's a radius, 7, find LA. I'm sorry, PA, PG. PA, PG. Well, if this is 7, PG has to be twice as big, so that would be 14. And lastly, it says if AG is 12, AG being this distance here, find LA. Well, these are both radiuses, or I should say radii, and therefore they must be the same. So LA would have to be 12 as well. Okay. Well, let's go on to the next page. Alright, this one's a little bit tricky. We got a lot of stuff going on here. It says the diameter of circle A is 10 inches. Okay, well, remember, if the diameter is 10, the radius is half of that. So the radius of circle A is 5. That's important because as I zoom in here, the only thing that I see marked is this distance here to here, which is a radius. So I'm going to mark that as 5. Alright, next thing it says is the diameter of circle B is 20 inches. So that means all the way across here is 20, which means that this distance is 10. So let's mark that. The radius is both 10. Okay, and then circle C is 14. So this diameter is 14, meaning that this distance from Y to C is 7. Alright, they want us to find XB and BY. So XB and BY. Well, let's just talk about this. First, let's take a look at XB. Well, we have this total distance is 10, and this distance is 5. So what does XB have to be? Well, it has to be 5 as well, because 5 plus 5 equals 10. So let's come over here, right? XB equals 5. The next one is BY. And we'll just use the same idea here. This whole distance here is 10. This distance is 7, so this distance has to be 3, because 3 plus 7, should have put a little 3 here and a little 5 here, because 3 plus 7 is 10. And so there's my answer. And that's how you find those. Just by marking everything accurately, you're able to kind of figure it all out. Okay, circumference. This is the distance around the circle. Or you could say the perimeter of the circle. So it's the distance around a circle. Circumference units and diameter of D units, or a radius of R units. This formula for a circumference is how you're going to find it. And you've probably seen these before, especially this one, C equals 2 pi R. So you're going to need to be familiar with those, kind of memorize those. But yeah, let's do a couple examples here. Example 4 says, find the diameter and the circumference of the circle. Okay, well remember that the diameter is simply twice the radius. So if the radius is 2, the diameter must be 4. And the circumference is 2 times 2 pi r. I'm sorry, 2 times pi r. Alright, well again the radius here is 2, so I'm just going to write C equals 2 pi times 2, or C equals 4 pi. Now, that's a good enough answer. We can just stop right there and say, hey, circumference is 4 pi. Probably want to add the little inches in there, because that's very exact. But if we wanted to get down to a decimal version, we could take 4 and actually multiply it by pi, which is approximately 3.14. And so we could just do that real quick. 3.14 times 4, we get 6, 1, 4 times 1 is 4. And we get approximately 12.56. And again, this is just an estimation, but we would get about 12.56 inches. So we could do that too. But I'm going to go ahead and say that if you leave it in terms of pi, that's an exact answer, and so I think it's a little bit better answer. Maybe if we were graphing or something, we'd need to know this, but for now, this is pretty good. Alright, so go ahead and try this one. This one says find the circumference and the radius of the circle, and now they give you the diameter, not the radius. So you got to figure out the other two parts. I'd say maybe pause the video, try this on your own, and then I'll put the answers up there. Okay, so circumference equals 2 pi r, or just pi times d. So pi times d in this situation would just be 3 pi, and it's centimeters, so like I said, we could just stop there. And the radius is always half the diameter, So if the diameter is 3, the radius is 1.5. Not so bad. Okay, let's do this last problem here. It says find the exact circumference of circle P. But they don't actually give us a radius, but they do give us this cool little triangle, or I should say rectangle in here, 5 by 12, but it's definitely a triangle as well because we have this diameter here. We just don't know the distance. Well, hopefully you're recognizing if this is a right triangle, which they say it is, we have a 5, a 12, and hopefully you remember that this is a Pythagorean triple. And so this distance here has to be 13. Okay, well, if it's 13, then that means the circumference is just 13 pi. And it says exact, and that is the only way to write exact. Remember, when you have to use decimals like we did up here, it's just an approximation. It's not exact, because pi goes on and on and on and on forever. So, yeah, we're going to just leave it like that, and we're done. That's the answer. Okay. For this one, I want you guys to try it on your own. But we're looking, it says, describe how you would find the perimeter and area of the figure. So, I put area there. That's an extra challenge, I would say. So you don't really need to do that. But mainly I want to know the perimeter. Below, if the top part of the figure is half of a circle, so we know that this is exactly half of a circle, so it's going to have half the circumference of a circle. And the bottom half is a square with sides 5 centimeters each, so these are all 5. Could you figure out the perimeter of the entire figure? Go ahead and try that, see what you come up with, and you could check it with me later.